From Atlanta News First Plus, this is Sports Tonight.
Happy Monday, Emily.
Happy Monday, Scotty.
How are you?
Fantastic.
Well, I'm sports producer Scott Pennyman here on this glorious Monday for Sports Tonight. A whole lot to talk about, Emily. Isn't this the best day to do Sports Tonight, right?
When we're together or Mondays?
I'm gonna say both.
Yeah, when we're together, I think it's a pretty good show. But yeah, I guess because we don't do this on Saturdays and Sundays, we have quite a bit to talk about. Not to mention a lot happened over the weekend. Dogs,
Really?
Falcons, and all of the above. But I know that there's one thing we'd rather talk about than others because it's just a disgrace. And I think that's where we're starting, right?
Yeah, so we're starting right with the Falcons, right? So it was with 25-23, last second field goal by the Arizona Cardinals. Sort of a gallant effort by the Falcons to fight back into that game. No. Well, I guess fight back late. They took the lead late.
A gallant effort.
They fought back. The quarterback Taylor Heineke went down, and then Desmond Ridder
came back in
for the rescue, ran for the go-ahead touchdown, which at that point looked like it was the game winner.
Seriously, you thought that? There was, 2:30 left on the clock?
Well, yeah, I mean, this was the Arizona Cardinals. They only had one win on the season.
It's also the Atlanta Falcons.
Come on, man. And then you give up the long play to McBride, the tight end.
Now, that was nice. That was a very nice throw. That was a great play.
But you got Richie.
Give it to Arizona.
It was, but you got Richie Grant out there in coverage, and he gives up the play, and big play there, and then they kick the game-winning field goal, get their second win of the year.
Prater's one of the best, so you knew he was going to make that.
It was a chip shot, too. I mean, it was, of course, indoors, chip shot, yeah. So that sent the Falcons to their third straight loss, their fourth loss in the last 5 games, and it leaves me wondering, what's next?
They're 4-6, entering their bye week. I will say Jonnu Smith said it last weekend after they lost, that he believed that it was important for them to win entering the bye week so they could enter the bye week with momentum,
right?
Feel rejuvenated during that week off, and then come back and focus. But quite frankly, you don't really get to enjoy your bye week when you've lost 3 straight, not to mention the teams they've lost against. I mean, they had no business losing against the Vikings.
That's the one right there.
You had no business losing against the Cardinals, who, by the way, the Cardinals only had 1 win entering that game. You had 2 teams in all the NFL who had 1 win on the season, the Cardinals and the Panthers. And then you let the Cards beat you. Though Kyler Murray was back, they didn't really have film to watch on him other than Kyler from last year. But
or the last 4 years.
You know the guy runs.
Yeah.
He takes off. He's very fast.
Yeah.
He can also make big plays in the air. If he has enough time, he
did both. He made big plays on that last drive with his legs and with his arm.
Yeah, I told you he runs, but he runs behind him about 20 yards, and you think, oh my gosh, he's about to get a loss of 20 yards.
He's like a chipmunk, man.
But he goes 20 to go 50, and then he gains 30 yards.
It's like chasing a chipmunk. Just give it up. Because he's just so fast, those legs move so fast, and
The Falcons just looked unprepared to me, Scott. I hate to say it, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with them right now. Obviously, not having a consistent figure at quarterback, it could be an issue. But Desmond Ridder should have been benched and was benched. And then you had Heineke in, and he was doing all right, but he got injured.
I told you, it's just going to be one of these back and forth quarterback carousels. And it's
right, but last week Arthur Smith said that during the bye week, this was last week, this was before the loss on Sunday, that whoever they pick during the bye week to be their starting quarterback is who they're rolling with the rest of the season.
Okay, well, no, he didn't. I was out there today. He didn't name a guy. He just said, good thing they have the bye week coming up so they can take some time. And Arthur, these last couple of days, I mean, the post game last night, him talking today to the media, he seems like a guy, he looks very exasperated. He looks like he's just frustrated, really searching for answers. Yep. And like he really doesn't know, he doesn't really have, doesn't really seem sure of himself moving forward, you know. And so I just think right now, when you think about the state of the Falcons and where they're at right now, it just seems like they're just really searching for answers. They don't really know. And I think Arthur, this is the first time I've ever covered Arthur where he just really looks kind of defeated. He looks like he's really searching for answers. He's normally like, like most NFL head coaches, like the smartest guy in the room. At least they appear to have all the answers. And right now, just when you're talking to him right now, I think Arthur Smith is a smart man, but he just I think he looks at what he has at the quarterback position right now. I think he looks at the composition of the football team, and he just really doesn't seem like he knows how to get this back on track.
Shame on the Falcons, though. You guys had an opportunity during the draft to do something at quarterback, but you wanted to test out Desmond Ridder. You thought Ridder was going to be your guy. You bet the entire franchise on that guy.
And a lot of people's jobs, too.
So, quite frankly, in my opinion, Coach Smith and Terry Fontenot, your philosophy is to draft the best player on the board, not the player you need at a certain position. I think that philosophy might need to change, and it might need to change very fast. This upcoming draft, if you're still with the Falcons, don't take that fancy-looking man who looks really great at a certain position that you don't need.
Right.
Let's start with the offensive line or at quarterback.
I was going to say that when you said this time around, it was getting me wondering in my mind, was it going to be this time around for this current front office and head coaching staff? Because like I've said a million times, you have a lot of coaches that get a couple years to turn things around. There's not very many coaches that get 3 years of no playoffs to turn things around. And I think that's starting to be realized now. I think Arthur and his coaching staff around him are starting to realize that time is running out. This is year 3 now. We're halfway through year 3. It's not looking much better here in year 3 than it did in the first 2. Yeah, we're more than halfway through, and it's not looking much better than it did the first 2 years now. And I think the sense of urgency, I think they're realizing time is running out. As a matter of fact, Emily, let's show a little bit. He talked for a little while today. You'll see a lot about what I mean here in this clip I'm about to play of him out there today. Just his reaction and his emotion. He looks like a defeated man. Who just really doesn't know
it's a tough job.
What the answers are. Yeah, it's a tough job, and you'll see it on his face.
Where we're at, I thought it was a good reset for Dez. Some things are going on. Obviously, he got evaluated in the Tennessee game, and he would have been able to come back. And obviously, Taylor went in there and operated pretty well. And like I said, he's not the first guy, and I think it could be very beneficial to him. I think what you saw yesterday, and I just even talking to different guys, and everybody's got different mentors, but story that Joe Gibbs told me, what he had to do with Mark Rippon with some fumble issues, and he came back and he worked on it and came back and obviously played pretty well. So everyone's different, but I think what you saw with Dez, what was very encouraging, is that's tough for anybody. As a young player in his career, and he had success. It wasn't like he went out there and was 0 for or anything like that, but we needed to get the turnovers under control and some other things going on. And but I always watch who wants the ball when the game's online, and he wanted the ball in his hands, and that's what we loved him coming out of Cincinnati. We've seen him at times, and I think sometimes you get in those moments, and that's the thing about pro football. It's going to test you in every which way, and it's always going to play out on the field. And I think what you saw is you get in those critical situations, got to have it. There you are in a game-winning drive, and you package some things in the short yardage. He wanted the ball in his hands. He got to convert the first one, second one, and he liked the look. I ended up, running into somebody, but he could have easily handed that ball off. And the same thing on the third down, he pulled it and ran it in. I would like to think Tyler would have gotten the first down. Dez had seen something, and then trying to play to his strengths, and we've seen that play. You guys have seen that play before, and it's essentially the play he had in Tampa, a little bit different. Had the ball in his left hand, ironically on the same part of the field, tucked it in, finished it, made a hell of a play. But that told me a lot, that he wanted the ball in his hands.
The second week in a row, he couldn't get the quarterback down in a play that might have saved the game. On the whole, tackling, who bears the responsibility for it? How much can you coach it all you want? In the game, things are just different, so where does that reside?
Yeah, it's obviously something we've got to continue to work and fix, but that's life in the NFL when you get in these type of games, and it comes down to a few plays, and obviously we didn't make enough of them yesterday, and ironically the last 2 weeks, same thing. However it's played out, we go down, take the lead, and just like we did in Green Bay. And we got to get back to that, or on the inverse, when we've had the ball late offensively to go win it, which we've done, and we didn't do that against Tennessee, right? And the same thing. So that's been the issue, certainly the last 3 games. So it's been a different guy, been different schemes, and we got to keep working on it. And we've played last 2 weeks for sure, 2 guys that can really extend the plays, and the way he rolled out of it, yesterday, AK had an angle. He kind of played back into Richie and Bud, and then he actually lost 21 yards and then came back around and got the first. So we've got to do something, and we'll continue to work. What you're setting up, why we wanted him to step up in the pocket like we did with Landman the time before. Landman comes off and sacks him, but he made the play and we didn't.
Arthur, as you self-evaluate during this period, is there anything, early conclusions you've come to, whether it's way quarterbacks for handle, play calling, any way you kind of approach the job?
Sure. I mean, I think too, Jeff, I think that, as it should, there's a lot of ways you can look at it, right? I could sit here and spin it to you that, focus on the positives. Well, there has been some positives. There's also some negatives that, reason we haven't won the last 3 or really the last 2, right? A play here or there. And so say you do win those last 2 games, are there other issues that could cost you later on if we don't fix them? Absolutely. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I think ultimately, again, what gets lost sometimes too, as it should, because the offense and certainly the quarterback spot garners a lot of attention, but then it also goes back to, 1, you're looking offensively, and then 2, you look at yourself as a head coach. There are things I can do better to manage the game better, because that's the other side that gets lost in it sometimes when you get when the games play out, and we like our process of how you want to manage that, and then I think that you can take a step back and say, all right, there are other things you can do logistically to help, manage it, and ultimately I need to be a better head coach too, right? So it all goes into it, and so that'll be a good time. Look at everything and things that we switch year to year, things that they've done before that I think may help us, so that we'll look at it all.
When you say maybe you need to be a better head coach, anything specific?
Well, it's just like this. I guess you could use that word and go 100 different ways. It's not me trying to be a martyr. It's just, right, if you're not getting the results you want, each year and each game there may present different obstacles. Some of the stuff about when to be aggressive on teams, when not to be, about setting things up, about, going for it. And so I think you just take a look at everything, see what your process is, and where do you think needs more help, what doesn't. So that's, I think we've got a very collaborative staff. I think the easy thing to get caught up into, I think sometimes every building's different. I'm sure there's guys in this league, that try to do it all by themselves. We're very collaborative in how you set things up, so it's not like you're just pulling plays out of your head and it's a one-man show. So there's some things I think that maybe if it logistically gives us better, or maybe it helps the team in terms of how we want to manage certain situations. That's what I mean by going into it.
When you, other than the situation in the NFC South, what is it that tells you this is a salvageable season, or you can still make something of it?
Well, I think a lot of things. Because of, again, how close you are in these games. They're all coming down to the wire. And so if all of a sudden it was hopeless or morale was low, yeah, that's a completely different animal. That's when you see that, when you're like, all right, yeah, there's no hope. That's not the case here. As frustrated as you feel, and you got to look at it. The results are what they are, but there's true evidence that we can right this thing. And even if you were 3 games back, the last 7 games matter, and history will tell you that.
You said throughout the season that you are what your record says you
Sure.
are. If you want to make the playoffs, you got to be a different team coming out of the bye than what you've been. In your experience as a coach, have you seen a team really truly change who they are over during a bye week? How much can, I guess, be
Yeah, I mean, and some of it too is like, all right, you know, what's been causing some of your issues that are close? You're talking about a play here or there. If you want to break it down to chance to make a tackle and end it, sure. I mean, that's one play there. It's a half yard here. It's maybe you don't win the matchup you're trying to get to on a critical third down. That can cost you points, or vice versa. They win the matchup because that's what it came down to. So I think if you're sitting there trying to sell you a dream and you're losing by 21 or something like that, then you kind of roll your eyes, as frustrated as you feel. So yeah, there's little tweaks. I mean, it happens week to week, right? I mean, that was the whole thing. Clearly, last week was to get the red zone better. Some things we wanted to do. So you end up going 75%, but obviously that was more of a positive, and you know how we wanted to attack them, and the game plan was different. We thought we had an advantage running the ball. Now the first half was it was fast as hell. I mean, we had 3 possessions. I'm not counting the kneel down with 10 seconds, but we didn't score on the first one. The last 2 we did. So you only had 3 possessions. Stalled out in the third quarter. Again, that's the give and take. Adjusted, started trying to work the ball outside, and gave us a chance with the go-ahead. So there's just a lot that goes into it. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's natural evolutions, and a lot of it is just getting over this hump. It's an enormous game coming in. You're right about the NFC South, whatever it is, but we'll see what it looks like when the season ends.
Arthur, 3-game losing streaks tend to bring a lot of eyeballs.
Sure.
A lot of different things. Are you, as a head coach, starting to feel pressure?
Like, here's the best way to answer that. No, in terms of like worrying about everything, you know, outside of your control, right? I mean, and I'll say this, like, in professional sports, like, don't go and get into professional sports if you're worried about that. So, I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, that's kind of your life philosophy. That's why I think this game is so is awesome. And it's kind of the old Latin phrase, amor fati, you know what I mean? Like, love of your fate, because I think if you look like a life like that, that's what you step into these things. And I took 4 years of Latin, so if I butchered that, there's some teachers that are going to be pretty mad at me from 20-something years ago. Sorry. But that's really the gist of it. And it's kind of how you approach life, and that's what you love this game. And I love the opportunity that I get to do this, and I get to work with the guys we got. And if you lose that perspective, shame on you. And you embrace it. The good, the bad, the pressure. That's what you want. It's what you sign up for. So good news is, not dead. And, you know, we have a chance to, as you said, salvage the season or do something about it. And whatever the odds are, we know we can use this time, get away, try to find solutions, and come back in here and go do everything to beat New Orleans.
Kind of follows that, but yeah, I mean, you got fans screaming for your job right now, obviously. Does that impact you? Do you understand it in any way? What are your thoughts on it?
It goes back to pro football. Like, don't sign up for it. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you win 10 Super Bowls or you don't win anything. I mean, that's what it is. So if you don't like that, don't sign up for it. That's, you know, players, everybody. I mean, if you don't want the pressure, there's other professions you can go do. I mean, that's just what it is, Jeff. You know what I mean? Like, we know what we're hired to do, and you embrace it, and you try to do everything you can to win. So you do right by the job you're hired to do.
I feel because of the nature of football, it's so reactionary. How do you, and like it's easy to kind of fall into the highs of the highs, the lows of the lows.
Mm-hmm.
How do you avoid falling into the lows, especially now when you have kind of a losing streak and an
Sure.
extra week to sit on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. It's kind of the world you live in, and right, I mean, there's more communication that happens through all kind of platforms.
Emily. That was Coach Arthur out there sort of giving his best explanation as to what happened and how they're going to move forward. Sounds like he's not too worried about his job, but he's conscious of the fact that he knows that his job could be in jeopardy. But just other NFL happenings yesterday, Emily, what was your favorite part of this past NFL Sunday?
I enjoyed watching Josh Dobbs get his second win.
Yes.
I don't even know if he knows the names of his receivers yet.
Probably not.
And I'm sure he was asked that after the game, because against the Falcons, he sure didn't. He hadn't even read the playbook. I'm sure he got a little deeper into it. But how much can you learn in a week? Yes, he's a very smart man. However,
He's going to be an astronaut one day or something, isn't he?
yeah, I mean, he has an astrophysicist degree.
Smart man. Smart man.
But right now listen, if you have the chance to play in the NFL, especially be a quarterback, a starting quarterback,
For sure.
that can wait. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that was so much fun. The Saints did give Minnesota everything the Vikings could handle, but they came out on top. And I'm sure people in Minnesota right now, or Vikings fans, are, this is God. Josh Dobbs is God.
For sure. I mean, he's the kind of guy who will probably be able to play in the NFL as long as he wants to, because he's a smart backup. You can plug him in the week of a game. He's smart enough to be able to dissect things and know where to go with the football come Sunday. And just watching him excel in a backup role, just really sort of hard to believe why more teams didn't have their eyes on him when he was available, because he's a very, very capable backup quarterback. He was a backup quarterback. I know I got a close-up look at him when he was backing up for my Cleveland Browns. So, yeah. And speaking of my Cleveland Browns, Emily,
They did something remarkable, did they not?
What a big-time divisional win. That was my highlight of NFL Sunday yesterday, was the Cleveland Browns going into Baltimore, huge divisional game, probably the biggest game of Deshaun Watson's career as a Cleveland Brown. He struggles in the first half. The whole team struggled in the first half. They were on the struggle bus in the first half. There was 50 people on that struggle bus, and they were all named Cleveland Browns, right? I mean, that bus was going off the cliff. They were down 24-9 at one point, I do believe. And
They
then
backed up, though. They
What's
backed
that?
up off the cliff.
Oh, yeah. They backed up. Deshaun Watson driving that bus, drove him off the back from the cliff. The guy was 14 for 14 in the second half, had a perfect quarterback rating, and showed all the reasons why the Browns went all in with him a couple years ago. That was easily his finest performance as a Cleveland Brown. And I sat here last week when me and Bailey were doing this show, and she just sort of laughed at me when I said I believe that the Cleveland Browns are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan. When you look at every aspect of that football team, defensively, just both sides of the ball, offensive line, they lost their best running back, Nick Chubb, UGA's own Nick Chubb, right? I mean, one of the best running backs in the NFL. Both tackles. I think they lost a third. They were on like their third
This is
left
Scott's
tackle,
team, guys.
right? This is my team. They were on like their third left tackle. Backup offensive lineman. They lost their best cornerback, Denzel Ward, yesterday. And they still found a way to fight through all those things and win a game, led by Deshaun Watson. And so when I look at what they are right now, they're 6-3. I think they're in prime position when you look at their schedule to make a big run here in the second half of the season and make a tremendous run in the AFC for a spot in the Super Bowl.
Because they beat the Ravens. This is the biggest test here? This was the measuring
Yeah,
stick?
for sure, that was the biggest test so far. They play Pittsburgh next week, another big test because they lost to them earlier in the season. But I think, once again, if Deshaun Watson can show up like he did in the second half yesterday and be that sort of quarterback for them the rest of the season, every moment isn't going to be perfect. No one's expecting him to be perfect. But if he can show up like that on a regular basis, week in and week out, that's going to give the Browns a chance to be a Super Bowl team. Remember I said that.
What's most important is having a leader who can bring you back from a deficit.
For sure. And that's
what I saw from your team yesterday.
For sure.
Is the fact that they played from behind and won. They finished it, right? They didn't just play from behind, get close, and then let off.
No.
I mean, they literally finished the assignment.
They finished the assignment, and so they'll move on to face the Steelers next week. And looking forward to that one. And speaking about finish the assignment, UJ finished another assignment, right? I mean,
Dropped 100 on Ole Miss. I mean, it wasn't even competitive.
No, of course it wasn't. I told you it wasn't going to be.
I think, they went back and forth in scoring right there in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And then Ole Miss just went home. I mean,
I didn't expect nothing less.
Really?
No, I didn't expect Ole Miss to fight in that game. I mean,
they don't have a defense. Ole Miss is known for its high tempo offense.
Yeah.
quick, but they are certainly not known for defense. And as long as Lane Kiffin is there and as long as he wants to win and bring a championship to Ole Miss, he's going to have to find a coach. I know he's got Pete Golden right now, who is at Alabama, who if Lee Smith was here, he'd be so happy to say that he was glad that Kiffin brought him to Ole Miss.
Right.
However, the defense has to get better, especially if you want to compete against teams like Georgia, who, quite frankly, have been giving up first drive touchdowns now for 4 straight games, 5 overall this season.
That just wakes them up, though.
But I will say there was a different tone after that game because I've asked players about it every single week. And Javon Bullard said, listen, what I'm realizing about this team is that we have a team that can play from behind.
For sure.
Like, we have a team that's able to come back from deficit.
Yeah.
So he's like, it's not like other teams other years where if you let your opponent score first, you might not be able to come back from that. He basically gave all the props to the offense, saying, like, we're not worried. And quite frankly, listen, what Kirby says about Carson Beck, about him, having complete composure and just not having a pulse, it's absolutely correct. I mean, Carson just goes out there. He doesn't care what the score is. He goes out there, he does the job, goes back to the sideline. I mean, that's literally all he does. I think he does a really good job in living in the now. And that's what Kirby looks for at quarterback, is who can literally just look at what's in front of them, play after play after play, and that's it. And Carson does a really good job at just analyzing what the job is in the moment.
Now, let's be real, Emily. They aren't going to go up to Tennessee and lose, are they? That's not going to happen.
Anything could happen at Tennessee. That place, 100,000 people will be there. I don't think they're going to get rattled by any stretch of the imagination. Like for me, which I'm doing something that Kirby, would hate to hear. I'm looking ahead to the SEC championship game. The team isn't, because they know they still have to win 2.
For sure.
And it's important that they win these 2, Scott. Because if they lose 1, then you can't lose in the SEC championship game.
Yeah, look,
You literally have to be perfect again.
I mean, I give Tennessee a puncher's chance, but let's be real. I mean, Joe Milton, that's the quarterback, right? I mean, he's been up and down the entire year. They just got whooped on by Missouri, right? I mean, and that's not to take anything away from Mizzou, but look, they're not going to compete. I think the one advantage they have, they're at home. Their home crowd is going to be into it. Everybody's going to be loud, all that stuff. But
it'll be a slow-moving game at first.
Yeah.
But then Georgia will more than likely take over like they always do.
Right, exactly. That's what happens. They'll give up their customary early game touchdown, and then they'll settle down. And then once the game gets going and Kirby gets to putting his imprint on the game as a coach and his coaching staff, they're going to find ways to slow you down on defense, and their defense will sort of settle into the game. And then offensively, they're going to start to take off. They got all those weapons in the backfield. They get the ball to Brock Bowers and Oscar Delp and Milton in the backfield. Next thing you know, that score is going to be 42-13, and we're going to be sitting here this time next week talking about the latest blowout, right?
They're going for 28 straight, though. 28 straight wins. That is absolutely incredible. It started when they beat Michigan in Miami, and they have not lost since. I know we're running out of time.
No, it's cool. So just move forward a little bit here. Obviously, rough is the life of an SEC head coach, right? I mean, a couple of them are gone. Jimbo Fisher let go at Texas A&M. He got a few dollars to step aside, though, right? So I think he'll be okay.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State also blowing out their head coach. Zach Arnett is done there. So it's hard to coach in SEC, right? I mean, you got guys like Saban and Kirby being the standard. Man, it's hard to keep these SEC jobs, right?
No, I mean, it's really, really hard when you're trying to compete. When you're Mississippi State, you're always, or more than likely, always going to be at the bottom of the West. That's just how you have been historically. Winning 6 games a season, 7 games a season will keep your job there. Dan Mullen knew that very well, but then he decided he wanted another challenge. But if you want to, you have to win 6 to 7, but then you'll have a job forever in Starkville. But then you talk about Texas A&M, who can compete with Alabama year in and year out. So they need to find a coach who obviously has coached under Saban or knows what to do to beat him. Hugh Freeze would have been that guy, but Hugh Freeze is at Auburn.
That's cool. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. We got like a half a minute left. Emily, anything special on your mind?
Have a good night, because we are out of time.
Well, we're out of time here for Sports Tonight on this Monday. Hope you had fun. We had a lot of variety in this show. Emily, always great doing the show with you.
Fantastic.
We'll be back tomorrow to talk about some more fun sports topics. I'm sure the Falcons will be on that list. So long, everybody. Have a beautiful Monday evening.
Good night.
Good night. I forgot to hit the thing I was looking for.